film, gaming, pop culture. Welcome to episode 19 of Everything is Permitted here at Wade's Comic Madness. I'm your host, Julian Brown, alongside my co-host, Matt Reppert. It's Free Comic Book Day.
It is, man. It's also, of course, May the 4th be with you.
It is May the 4th, so May the 4th be with you as well. Of course, before we knew, that this was going to happen on Free Comic Book Day, the sad news that Peter Mayhew left this world. Chewbacca, known to many. I had the pleasure of getting to meet him a couple times, and just
did you?
An absolute amazing.
Yeah, I heard he was a very nice guy. Like, went out of his way to meet fans and basically make their meetings with him very memorable.
Yeah, after conventions, he would sometimes just go out to dinner with fans and stuff. This was back in the early 2000s.
Nice.
During the prequel era, but just a super nice guy, super sad. He's up there with Carrie Fisher now. Mm-hmm. Just so you know, since it is Free Comic Book Day, we are recording in the main basement, and as you can see if you're watching on Facebook Live, all sorts of stuff going on. So you're going to hear people going up and down the stairs. There's these awesome comic auctions going on behind me. So live Free Comic Book Day is always madness here at Wade's Comic Madness, and we're going to get kind of right to it. One quick piece of business that I want to get through. We're going to do a giveaway for anybody who did the Great Permitted Rewatch.
Yes.
And rewatching every single Marvel movie leading up to Endgame, pretty much for all of April.
That's a lot of watching.
I did it. I'm very proud of myself.
I was never going to be able to do it.
You weren't. I had to do a couple, in one day. We made it happen. Anyway, our winner is listener Heather, and I'm really sorry, Heather. I'm going to butcher your last name. You can message me if I got it wrong. Heather Bullion, I believe, is how you pronounce your last name. You are our winner. You get a free 4K copy of Avengers Infinity War.
Nice.
So congratulations to you. Let's talk about what's coming up on our show. We are going to obviously be talking about all the awesome free comics that came in the Free Comic Book Madness.
Stack right
free
here.
Comic Book stack. We're looking at it right here. We also have a guest. Brittany Tomes is here, and I hope I got your last name. Well, that's right. Great. She will be talking about, she's a Captain Marvel cosplayer and all of that. Captain Marvel, Endgame. Then Karyn, the Mother of Dragons, my wife, and my good friend who I used to do the Soccer Desk podcast with, Brian Barrish, recap the first 3 episodes of Game of Thrones. For you Facebook Live listeners, you can hear that on Tuesday. And then finally, Matt and I will come back, and we will talk about our favorite non-Marvel DC shows. Not shows, sorry. Marvel DC comics.
Yes.
Because we could talk about Marvel and DC all
Yeah,
day. We do it
obviously,
anyway.
that's
so
a lot of stuff there.
Let's get into some quick rants or raves. Do you have anything going on?
I'm not going to do my standard Best Buy didn't have Steelbook available thing until I walked into the store, because I feel like that's almost a weekly event for me at this point. I've tried to pre-order stuff, and then literally one of the employees added insult to injury about a week or two ago, because she goes, why don't you just pre-order them so that way you don't miss out and get them? And I'm like, I don't know what's up with your store. Your store just doesn't have it ever on the site.
They're always messing something up. But yeah, we seem to talk about that every episode.
So as I said, I'm not going to get into that again.
Brittany, you're our guest. Do you have any rants or raves since you're here with us right now?
Oh, man. I feel like I'm always ranting and raving about something. Obviously, the only thing that's really happened last week is Endgame.
Endgame.
And there's been plenty of ranting and raving about that.
There has, and we will talk about that with you. I don't have any rants or raves for once. I usually do. I could rant and rave about the Union, but this isn't a sports show.
No. Once in a while, we'll touch into that.
They'll kind of cross paths. They are
but
doing their theme night tonight. They're May the 4th.
I am like Heather told me. She goes, you need to be in line so we can get that flag or whatever they're giving.
It's a flag, and I think there's a couple poster variants, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
May the dupe be with you.
Yes, may the dupe be with you. May the force be with you. Not Heather. That was our winner. Brittany is a hardcore soccer fan as well.
Yeah,
that's
apparently.
awesome.
Seems like soccer and nerdom always seem to just.
Definitely.
I think somebody said it aren't sports fans. They're just nerds of a different thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We all have our hyperfixations.
We do. Absolutely true.
You'll find that, especially being friends with me on Facebook now, you'll see all the things I like.
Yes, I've noticed that already in the short few days we've been friends on Facebook. Well, if we don't have any rants or raves, that's a good thing, because that means we can save time on the show, and I don't have to edit as much, because editing, actually, you know what?
What?
I will rant about one quick thing, and that is our last show. Man, I feel like since we started this, next week will be our 20th episode. Mm-hmm. this has been like all kind of a lot of our episodes have been leading up to Endgame, and man, I'm not. This is me not tooting my own horn in any way, but like I wanted our Endgame episode to be perfect. I spent like 72 hours editing. I usually spend like maybe 5-6 hours editing like a 1 hour and 20-minute show. There were just and I spent 3 hours on a segment and I lost it. And I had to go back to the laptop and get the unedited version and edit it all over again.
Jesus, man.
It was a true labor of both my patience and my love. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm not looking for you to say, good job, Julian. I'm just saying it was a lot of work.
He's just looking for the Oscar.
I am looking for, or the Grammy, I guess?
I couldn't.
No, Oscar.
No, Oscar has editing, best editing.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, maybe I am looking for an Oscar.
The forgotten Oscar
Hey,
award.
Star Wars was saved in editing.
That's right.
Sure,
got
this
it.
is his wife coming in clutch.
This is true. Matt, if we have no more things to rant about, it is time for...
The permitted minute.
The permitted minute. And I'm going to get it right on the minute mark.
All right.
Go.
Not really a surprise to anyone. Avengers Endgame destroyed all weekend box office numbers, making $1.2 billion in its opening weekend.
Although it still made $37 million on its fourth day, Endgame did fail to break the Monday record. Boo-hoo. Also, Hulu has announced that it's developing both a Ghost Rider and Hellstrom series for its streaming service. Real quick, I'm going to interrupt there. They are also, apparently Disney is looking to buy all of Hulu, even though they have a stake. Go.
According to The Hollywood Reporter, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will start shooting in 2020, shortly after James Gunn finishes shooting the Suicide Squad sequel.
Game of Thrones cinematographer Fabian Wagner is defending the choice to keep the Battle of Winterfell so dark, even going so far as to blame the fans for the issue instead of taking any form of responsibility.
At long last, the end times may actually be here, as the first trailer for the live-action Sonic film hit the internet. Sonic himself, as shown in the trailer, is even baffled as to why this movie is coming out. Did we make
did it with 6 seconds left?
I thought you got us with your little
sidebar.
Your sidebar cut in there.
I'm intentionally trying to sabotage it.
I'm just putting this out there, and for the last thing, the Sonic, like how he looks, will haunt my nightmares for years to come.
Well,
I know they're going to redo him, which
But do we even need the movie in the first place?
I don't like. It's always funny to me because Sonic always seems to get all these other properties, but like things that you think people would be kind of interested, like a Mario animated movie, perhaps, or something like that. Like there's a live action Sonic movie. Like, are there Sonic fans out there that were clamoring for this?
Well, that's rude. I'm right here.
I've never, ever wanted a Sonic movie, ever. I'm very happy with the Sega games and the iPad games.
I'm not gonna lie. One of the Sonic animated shows when Sonic was voiced by Jaleel
the cartoons
White.
back in the 90s.
Yes, only one of them. There were 2 of them, but one of them was garbage. The other one was awesome.
Sounds like every other Sonic game, though.
Yeah.
One was garbage, the other was awesome.
I really liked the cartoon a lot. Before we get to Brittany, I just want to take a quick minute for everybody listening on Facebook who may not be here yet and is coming later for Free Comic Book Day. There's some amazing stuff going on. All day from when they close at 10 p.m. tonight. There's a great fundraiser. There's 2 great fundraisers going on right now, actually. We posted about one last night. One is for the Autism Cares Foundation, and then as well, there's a local baby, Ethan James. He has a rare genetic mutation, so there's just these 2 amazing fundraisers coming out for free comics. You get free comics. There's amazing baskets out front. They're raffling off a Nintendo Switch. So
nice.
some really cool things up there to get off. There's some artists here trying to get their comics up off the ground. Mm-hmm. We may actually have them on the show in a couple of weeks.
Nice.
So looking forward to possibly talking with them. There's also an art show which is down here with us. And then at 2, and this is how I'm going to lead into Brittany. Brittany, you're going to be here later,
Yes,
dressed as Captain Marvel.
Woo! I'm also low-key her right now.
Low-key Captain Marvel with the bomber jacket.
Oh, is this how you are undercover for your secret organization? Yeah.
Oh, love it. So, Brittany, let's talk about it because you do Captain Marvel cosplay. So, first off, welcome to the show, and also, how long have you been doing this now? The movie came out in April, and we had our kind of first look a few months at the outfit before that. So, how long have you been doing this for?
Pretty much just for this last year.
Awesome.
Yeah, I haven't started before then, even though I've always wanted to cosplay her version from the comics, especially like the most recent run, which is super awesome.
Yeah. Have you done any other cosplays before this?
Not officially. Like, I'm not really one of those official cosplayers or anything like that, but, going to different conventions or even growing up and any time we had Halloween or any reason for me to dress up for literally anything, like, I will. And I go all out.
All out
so
is good.
Darth Maul's one of those characters I've been, like, 3 or 4 times. I know the makeup by heart.
Wow.
I would put prosthetic horns on, have my own hood. I did martial arts, so I would dress all
Nice.
up. It was great.
Good stuff.
I know you're doing today here at Wade's from 2. There's going to be other cosplayers as well. You also did the movie theater
Yeah, I
at
did.
United
People
Oxford
lost
Valley.
their minds.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Has it taken you anywhere else?
Not yet, but I mean, I'm gonna go to Philly Comic Con this summer, so hopefully I'll cosplay there as well. And I want to do this more often. I just recently changed jobs, so now I actually have time to
That's
do my
awesome.
hobbies again, like D&D and cosplay. So.
Yeah, actually, my wife and I actually saw you in costume when we saw Endgame, because I remember we walked in, I noticed you at the table, and I was like, oh, cool, it's like somebody dressed up as Captain Marvel. It looked awesome. Like, it was an awesome looking costume. And so, I mean, what are your thoughts on Captain Marvel, like how she's portrayed in the movies, on her current comic run, and any of that?
Well, I was a fan of Brie Larson before she was announced as being Captain Marvel, and then when they did announce her, I was really excited because I know she's like a solid actress. And she also really dug into source material when she got ready for the part, so I feel like she captured her like cockiness and kind of like her little bit of ego that she does have, but she like embraces that because like Marvel characters, she has like her flaws, and that's why we like her so much. So like she tries so hard to be a hero, and I think that she's captured that really well. And I think the film was just enjoyable, so it was pretty solid. And I think it was just enough characterization, like not too much background or characterization to like get us ready for her to join the chaos of Endgame. But
Now, I do want to ask the question, like your costume I saw, did you make it yourself or did you buy it?
no,
or?
actually, it's interesting. I bought it online,
Okay.
and it was like months before the movie was really out, and they only had the pictures of her in the Kree uniform, like the green.
Oh, the green.
Yeah. So I got somebody to make it, and then I bought it from Etsy. But all they did was like make up their own colors for it. So it's interesting. Like my gloves are the wrong color because like they just took the dark like Kree gloves and then changed it to the dark blue. When in the movie it turns out she makes it red. So,
Yeah.
Sorry, spoilers.
No,
It changes
that's
the color.
yeah. Oh,
but yeah.
I love the movie iteration of the costume. They got the hair right and
I love
everything.
it. I don't have the helmet yet though.
Is that in your plans?
Yeah, I mean, I plan on slowly like making my costume better and like building it up. That was just kind of a like I really want to do this and like I'm gonna finally do it this year. Like it's one of those things where you're like I'm finally gonna do it. So
Any plans to maybe do like a comic version, like with the sash
definitely.
and yeah.
1000%.
I love her comic. Was it you who posted the video?
Sue, the comic one?
She's awesome.
A plus.
Yeah,
just like one of those
absolutely.
good creators in just the nerd community in general, and like excellent comic book writer. So
Yeah. Speaking of the comics, Matt briefly mentioned her current comic run. Recently, there was a run done, about a 5-issue run called The Life of Captain Marvel, which, kind of edited her backstory a little bit, and then they started a new one that I believe is tying into the current War of the Realms run that they're doing, the big event for Marvel, and I think that's something that's in the
we'll-
free comics
we'll
that
go
we'll,
through-
we'll
we'll go
talk
through
about
that.
Is that
later.
Buffy? Oh, I got
There is a Buffy comic in there. Yeah.
Honestly, I'll read anything, so it doesn't even matter. Like, is it free? I'll read it. If it's not, I'll buy it.
Are you keeping up with the comic run as well?
I haven't read this newest run, but I was up with DeConic's run. And then they announced the movie happening, and then she kind of like stepped down. So I was like, I don't know where this is going, but I have faith that it's going in the right direction. So I'm probably going to continue with it now.
She's been awesome in the new Avengers book, which is like one of my favorite books out right now. And if you haven't read The Life of Captain Marvel yet, it's super cool. I really love that run. We talked about your thoughts on the Captain Marvel movie. Let's get your thoughts on Endgame. And for anyone down here, there might be some spoilers.
I'm going to try not to spoiler. I'll try to be vague. I will say that sitting there and watching Endgame, it was like a weird... I'm pretty sure everybody felt this, especially if you've been like a long time comic book fan, but it was like a surreal feeling where you're like, wow, this is finally happening. Because like Infinity War kind of started off that way, but it's like you feel all these years of them culminating to this moment, and then you're watching it and you're like, this is really happening. Okay. I think it was a pretty like solid way to, I guess, wrap up a lot of character growth and like certain story arcs. Like obviously there's still some characters that, they can do more. But there's specific characters that I think they just made it go full circle in like a really beautiful way and kind of capped it.
Did you appreciate how much Carol was in the movie instead of her kind of being featured throughout? Did you want more?
I mean, I wanted a lot more for her and a lot of other characters as well, like especially given the 3-hour long runtime. So I feel like there were some aspects in probably the first act of the movie that could have been at a slightly faster pace, so that way there was more length given to the second and third acts. So that way, like, I really wanted to see more character reunions, because that's the powerful part. Like, when certain characters meet again, like, you want to see that impact a little longer, or see how that affects characters on both sides.
Yeah, I think, Matt, we did our spoiler episode last time. I agree with you totally. I wish there was more Bucky and Cap. Like I said, spoilers, so that was your moment. Bucky and Cap, and like I do wish that Carol got to like interact a little bit more with the Avengers. In the comics, she's in a relationship with Rhodey. I feel like during that
she's got a good like thing going on with Rocket too. Like, good friendship. I like that dynamic. Yeah.
I thought there was maybe like a hint that they might be showing her and Rhodey later down the road when she says to him on the videos like, "Hey, be careful."
Yeah, be careful. Yeah.
So
I thought that was interesting, but it seems like Brie Larson's trying to lean towards like her being like more open to whoever the character could be with.
Yeah.
Like in the comic runs, like she does have more like LGBT sort of like features about her, which I understand as a lesbian woman. So like that's something I get, and it's definitely like there were cues of that in the Captain Marvel film that she definitely put in there. So I'm like, I'd be fine if she ends up with Rhodey. It's just a little weird because the actors are different ages. I feel like they tried to like age her up. Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, that would be a little weird for me. Like as far as comic book run Rhodey and her, that's the age works.
I think that's been a little bit of a complaint, is that the movies haven't shown as many like possible like LGBTQ friendly relationships.
Well, there was that whole. I know that the Russo brothers, where they were like patting themselves on the back for the supposedly like gay character.
Because
it's like some throwaway line that
the focus group.
Yeah, something like that.
And just being like, so I met this guy the other day, and I was like, oh wow, such representation. I feel it. It's flowing through my veins. More representation watching Captain Marvel than I did there.
Hopefully,
that was like a hint.
Hopefully, more down the road.
That
would be nice.
But we have so much in the source material with like, I mean, there's so many more characters that already exist that are like LGBT also that just aren't on the screen yet, or they haven't been explored fully. So when you gotta look in some pages until it's in the movie.
Yeah, no, totally. I do want to talk about representation a little bit to wrap up. There's been this ridiculous controversy with Brie Larson that has been so blown out of proportion and and blown out of the water, and people just won't let it go. I kind of want to get your take on that before we wrap up. Like, is it people just like feel like their characters are getting stomped on? Or is it just pure like sexism? Like,
I think it's a mixture of a few things. The same thing happened with Star Wars. When, like, a strong female character is introduced, automatically people are like, oh, this is some Mary Sue crap, whatever. And you're like, okay, hold on. I was like, if we're going by the way that things are happening with Rey, the same things happen with Luke and Anakin. They magically could all of a sudden pilot really well. They could do all these things. They didn't need that much training. But in this case, I think it was also the fact that she was trying to use her platform to make things more inclusive.
Yeah.
Especially when she talked about being in a room and seeing people that are, like, reporters. And she's like, let's try and have people, I don't know, that are more women or black people reporting, like, etc. She wants basically not to be a room full of just white guys. And then by pointing that out, people are already offended because there's, a certain demographic that people think are the only people that read comics. But even going back to like the 40s, like women have always read comics.
I actually saw a really cool video last night when Brie was on her Captain Marvel press run, and she got to get interviewed by a female British Airlines pilot, which I thought was like really cool. And they like nerded out about her like going up in the air and like flight stuff. Like that's exactly what she's trying to get. She's not saying that it can't be like just women or just anybody of color or it could be anyone, but let's get more. Let's get more diversity.
Because that's when you find like better stories or you see these connections, and that's what she's trying to show. Because I found, even as cosplaying as Captain Marvel, it's very interesting to see what groups of people are excited to see me. So when I was at the theater, like, a lot of young girls and boys were excited to see me. And, like, as far as adults were concerned, like, a lot people of different minorities were more excited to see me than just, like, people that looked exactly like me. Like, sometimes I had groups of white people just walk by and didn't even want to talk to me. Yeah. But then, like, a family would come in and they were black and they were so excited because, in that film, not only did you have Nick Fury, but you also had Maria, and just so much representation was in that film, and it wasn't in a stereotypical way. So, like, people ran up and they were excited to see me, and I was like, do you want to wear the bomber jacket? Do you want to wear the hat? And
That's awesome.
I didn't
Yeah,
necessarily expect it, but I also wasn't thinking that it wasn't going to happen. But it was just very surprising. Even at the theater, I noticed that.
I had actually the same experience with you. Obviously, I'm not a woman, but I noticed that I'm white, Matt's white, you're white, but like a lot of white people like kind of like walked past or like didn't really care. But like there were a lot of
Yeah. I think it's because they're used to it and like that they've had that.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
But
then
like some of the most excited people I had were like African American families, even like Indian families, like coming up and like taking copies, being super excited, and I loved that.
exactly.
Yeah. Brittany, anything else that you want to add about Captain Marvel cosplay? We're gonna obviously you later here today. Maybe any other plans like where you're gonna be?
I will say I'm not sure if I'm going to do the new hair or not.
That would be. I mean, you have
That's a
very
major
long
life
hair. That
decision.
would be. Yeah.
I've never had my hair cut shorter than like shoulder length, so.
Well, you could
I've
do.
been thinking about it though, because I'm like, even reading the comics, I was like, that would be so cool. But I'm like, but would I be able to pull it off? And like, could it work?
Start with the helmet,
to be
maybe, and
fair,
put some
just-
hair in the helmet.
Exactly. We'll see. Maybe one day. But I don't know. That's the one thing I did think of though, especially when the movie happened. I was just like, man, she did it. Now I gotta do it.
Well, Bree didn't do it. It was a
True,
wig.
it
It
was
was
a
a
wig,
wig.
yeah.
It was a good wig.
But it had to be, because if she would have cut it beforehand, people
People
would
would
have
have
known.
gone
They would have
crazy,
been like,
yeah.
she did what now? Interesting.
Well, Brittany, thank you so much for coming on. We hope to see you more coming out as Captain Marvel. Hopefully, I'll be dying to see if you do the hair or not.
You'll know.
Yeah,
It'll be on
I'll see it on
Facebook and I'll be
Facebook.
like, crying.
Brittany Tomes, thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank
thank
for
you. Thank you so
joining
much.
This show.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming on.
And for you Facebook people, if you haven't come yet, she will be here at 2, and you'll be able to take pictures with her
Yes.
and all that fun stuff right outside Wade's Comic Madness. Speaking of comic books, why are we doing this show live? Because it's Free Comic Book Day.
Yes, we got the stack right
We
here.
have the
I didn't even know it was
stack.
this. I didn't even know it was this many comics they were giving out.
And it's this many comics, and it's there's like a lot of good like previews. So if like you see something in here that you like,
Okay.
you get like the whole list of what is coming up in like the next few weeks and months. Even I have a pull list here
Mm-hmm.
at Wade's, and I still use that as a resource because I like to see if there's anything new
Yeah.
that I might be interested in. But today's the best day for it, because if you're not a comic book reader, you can come in, get this awesome free bag of comics. What you don't see here is if you bring your kids, they also are giving out a free bag of kids' books that are a little bit more age appropriate. I know my daughter Cecily loves getting those. But we're going to kind of, go through these free comics. There's a bunch of good ones. Before that, I want to give a quick plug to my buddy Frank. Frank is an employee here at Wade's Comic Madness. He is one of the hosts of the Wade's Comic Madness Variety Hour podcast that they do here, but he's also started a new show. It's called the Nutaku Anime Podcast. It's a show for new fans of anime and for old fans as well. So if you want to get into that, you can listen to them on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. You can also follow them on Twitter, Instagram at NewTakuCast.
Anime has always been my dark little secret that I've had.
You should get on their show then, man. I'm sure they'd be
I probably
glad to
should. I
have
really
you.
should, because like anime is one of those things that like when I was younger, I love the hell out of it. My friend Rob and I, literally like pretty much the early 2000s, pre joining the military, we would go to Wawa, get stuff, get like some food and stuff like that. Come
Mountain
back
Dews?
well, not Mountain Dews. I hate Mountain Dew. But no, we would get like a hoagie or something like that. Come back, and we would watch like anime. We would watch Mystery Science Theater. So I have like a big connection to anime, and I bought like a few shows that I still haven't watched for cheap last year. I bought,
Let's
like, a few
sidebar here
series,
real
so-
quick. How much stuff do you get at Best Buy and eBay that you have yet to watch? What percentage would you guess of your collection? 'Cause I'm the same way, to be fair.
It's a good percentage because of the fact that like. Yeah, I'm always on the lookout for deals. I'm always on the lookout for, and as I said, I bought like a bunch of anime last year for like dirt cheap prices, like $10-15 for an entire season, show, whatever, and haven't watched a single one yet.
And that's okay.
Haven't got around to it.
That's okay. I have like tons of Blu-rays that I've yet to watch.
Yeah.
So, But we're not here to talk about Blu-rays. We are here to talk about comics.
Comics. Oh, yes.
So I guess we'll just go from top to bottom here.
Yeah, we can. You want to take the first one?
I'll take the first one because before you got here, actually, there was a family down here and a kid who was asking about video game comic books, and specifically Mortal Kombat. And I know that they're not doing a Mortal Kombat run right now, but I think Dark Horse had a...
I thought... Because for a while on the Comixology app, I was getting Mortal Kombat.
Yeah?
Yeah, because they
maybe
were kind of like, it was kind of like a addendum to the Mortal Kombat 10.
Oh,
and I'm assuming they did like a
cool.
Mortal Kombat run for leading up to
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat 11 to kind of fill in gaps in story and things like that.
Nice. Awesome. Well, this is a Street Fighter. It's featuring Sakaru and Karyn. I don't know those characters. I think that is...
I know Sakura. I know her. She's been in Street Fighter since, I want to say, the late 90s.
Okay.
She's kind of like the kid girl version of Ryu.
Okay.
Essentially, that's the way I always kind of pictured her in my mind. And Karyn, I don't know how you can say that. I don't know her. I don't know her.
I see Chun-Li is in this book as well.
They look very
so
chibi.
It is. This is a very like anime style book. So if you're into that might be for you. Matt, you got this next one here?
Yes, we have Riverdale, which I haven't watched the show, but I always heard the show was pretty good. Archie Comics, from everything I've heard about them, are like they just completely just went creative on They had like. I'm pretty sure they had like aliens show up, like, and I'm talking like the movie Alien show
in
up.
Archie.
I feel like they did. I feel like that was one of those throw out stories. Like Archie Comics to me growing up were always those little things I would see at the supermarket where it was like, "Hey Veronica, let's go get a hamburger," and it was like, this is lame.
Yeah.
And then, like, as I said, like I think that like Archie Comics have just become like this insane thing of like we're just gonna have fun with it and just do whatever with the story.
So Karyn and I watched the first few episodes of Riverdale and enjoyed it, but it became one of those casualties of we just had too many other shows that we liked. So we stopped watching.
I know that the show kind of got more attention due to the unfortunate passing of Luke Perry.
Luke Perry, thank you. Matthew Perry is...
I think he was on Friends, wasn't he?
Yes, that's Chandler. I think people know this
You're
about
confusing
me.
your Perrys.
I watch way too many Friends episodes like every day. But Riverdale's... I actually want to get back into it. I asked Karyn if I could watch it without her because I don't think she cares too much, but I might get back into it.
I feel like that's what marriage is asking your spouse, can I watch this without you?
I told her I was going to watch Umbrella Academy without her, and she almost slapped me. And my wife is not a violent person.
I still need to watch. I really want to watch that.
We have a friend coming in from Atlanta at the end of the month, and she's like, "We'll all watch it together." So I will do that. This is pretty neat. We have a Vampirella comic in here, dating back. I believe Vampirella is from like old monster movies.
Yeah, I feel like just the name alone kind of makes me think like 70s like Grindhouse.
Yeah,
like that's and actually literally like one of the characters literally looks like she might have stepped right out of a 70s blaxploitation movie.
And it's very, very graphic. So if you're into that kind of thing and some cool vampire moments and butts, so there's that.
So we also have Under the Moon, a Catwoman tale. Now I'm curious. Is this Catwoman? Is
it Selena Kyle?
I don't know. Actually, I'm kind of confused because either it's a woman who really likes cats, which I'm into either or. Like whether she's Selena Kyle or is just really all about cats. But so yeah, Under the Moon, a Catwoman tale.
Cool. Looking at this, I've never heard, so I'm not going to be too much help with this, but it's called Animosity Tales. It looks like fantasy. Friends, there's people who maybe could talk to or friends with pets. Or I shouldn't say pets because they all look like large animals. There's a guy is he
talking to a fish?
He's not only talking to a fish, he's like has a fishbowl attached to him.
So it's basically Klaus from American Dad.
It's Klaus. It's totally Klaus. American Dad is a show that I never like watched religiously, but now it's like on in the middle of the afternoon and I'm like holding Caleb and I'll watch it and I love it.
It started out as one of those shows where it was just a spoof of like the Bush era. Like,
it totally
the Bush era,
was,
and like, the threat level is now magenta. Like it made those kinds of jokes. And like I know people who have kept up with it. I haven't. Like it was a casualty of like I just didn't have time to watch it. But I know people who still watch it, and they say it legitimately is one of the funniest shows still running.
I think it's at points like funnier than Family Guy.
Yeah.
So
also,
I'm jealous that you're getting.
Nah,
this.
no, I'm really, I really lucked out with this one. So the crossover you didn't know you needed, but Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Firefly. I don't know how the hell this would happen because they literally take place in entirely separate timelines, let alone universes. But apparently the Serenity either comes back in time or Buffy goes forward in time. And also I see Angel on the cover, so obviously he is...
My man, David Boreanaz.
Yeah, so he's
Philly
somehow
local,
involved,
Philly
he's somehow
native, I should
involved
say.
in this. So, you know, if you want to come down here and get you a free Buffy the Vampire Slayer / Firefly crossover comic, here it is for you.
I'm just going to do a quick sidebar because I did just have someone here locally who asked me if we have cards. I came unprepared because I was going to finally get business cards made for us. But
Okay.
For those on Facebook and for you, sir, you could find us at facebook.com/everythingispermitted and on Instagram @permittedpod and Twitter as well. And iTunes, Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, we're kind of everywhere at this point.
We are
now.
everywhere at this point. Spotify. We are on Spotify now. I know what people.
I know, I saw you-
People like Spotify. So
Okay. Yeah.
this, I can't wait to read that. So,
So this one's yours.
yeah. So you and I are both kind of interested because this is the new Sci-Fi Channel show.
The gentleman who played Wong in Doctor Strange is one of the main characters.
He is. This is a free comic book day deadly class. It's called the Killer Set. I wasn't gonna start watching this show, but it looks really good.
Yeah. It's
And-
just the setting alone interests me. It's like it takes place in the late '80s with the whole
Yeah.
counterculture movement and everything. So, like, I'm already like looking forward to watching the show in the near future, and I'm looking forward to having like give me some good '80s music in there. Some good like
I would
underground
hope that there
80s.
is.
I mean, the show's wasted if it doesn't do that.
Yeah. So if you do watch Deadly Class or don't and want to get into it, this might be a good entry with this Deadly Class Killer Set.
So, we have a blast from the past, a staple of my 90s nerddom because, you know, I saw the movie and I convinced myself it was good. Spawn. So, I mean, Spawn is one of those mainstays that, and actually I think Spawn basically launched, I think, Image Comics.
He did. No, he absolutely
Yeah, because I can't think of the creator. Not Rob McFarlane, was it?
it's Seth Mc... No, that's...
No, that's Family Guy. That's
Todd
Todd
McFarlane.
McFarlane. Yes, like basically
That's
Spawn.
twice now I've mixed up last names
I know.
for comedies.
I know, but like Todd McFarlane like created Spawn. It launched Image, and I mean I know it's like Spawn is like a classic mainstay of like the kind of not DC, not Marvel,
But still,
comic series.
still in there in popular culture. And
Yeah,
I
he's-
believe there's a Spawn show in development.
There might be. I mean,
Or it's been in developmental hell.
The
at least.
the HBO animated series, to me, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was a little bit like trippy at points, but like the Spawn animated HBO series back in the day was like everything you wanted from a violent adult animated TV show. So
Spawn was one of the first action figures I ever received. I don't know if it was my brother Jason or my brother Carrie. Back in the 90s, you were over for Christmas, if you're listening, and one of you handed me an awesome Spawn action figure, and I
Nice.
always remember that. I love Spawn. Spawn's pretty awesome.
Spawn was that superhero that you liked in the
And
90s
not
because
really
you were
a
an edgy
superhero.
kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he was that like, yeah, I like Spawn. He's not just a good guy. He's dark and gritty.
Obviously, Stranger Things season 3
Yep.
is coming up, but we also have a free Stranger Things comic here, and it's got the I always forget the name of
The Demogorgon.
The Demogorgon on the cover. I've only watched season 1 so far, and
Season 2 was a solid season.
yeah, we keep meaning to watch it. It's one of those things that we never get around to. But this looks like it's a season 1 tie-in, judging by Eleven's hair. Does she have the short hair in season 2?
It looked like, if I remember correctly, it started to grow out.
Okay,
Like,
so
she
this
didn't have
might-
long hair, but it's starting to grow.
This might be post season 1 from what I'm gathering. You watched both seasons.
Yes.
was there need for a season 3? Are you excited or?
No, I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
it. I'm not going to spoil it, but they ended season 2 with like a bit of a cliffhanger.
Big cliffhanger, yeah.
So, another blast from my past. I loved the movies growing up, even though the third one was complete garbage. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Fun fact here is that somewhere at my parents' house and all the crap that I still have there that I need to go through and throw out, I legitimately still have the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures with all their little weapons and their little Chinese stars that
That's
put under their
awesome.
belt.
How do you keep all that stuff together?
I honestly, because it was in like a box, because I remember a few years back I saw them there and I was like, oh man, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. They still have their weapons, and I'm like, and they still have the little Chinese stars on their belt, and I'm like, those things would like go missing immediately. How the hell do I still have these? So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Do you have your VHS of the original movie?
I don't. However, I own the original movie on Blu-ray.
Of course you do.
I own it on Blu-ray. I own a digital copy of
How
it.
about the second movie?
I haven't gotten there yet.
This actually looks really cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's, as I said, I love the Ninja Turtles, and obviously the animated series, the original one with the classic.
Do you want to do some Wade's Comic Madness fan interaction real quick? Does anybody want to be on a podcast real quick? We're just talking Ninja Turtles. We want to know who your favorite Ninja Turtle is. Come over here. This is what it's all about.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, come on over here. All right, talk to the mic. What's your name?
Gio.
Gio, who's your favorite turtle?
Either Donatello or Michelangelo.
Awesome.
I was a Michelangelo fan
I was a
myself.
Mikey fan as well. How about you? What's your name?
Lucia,
Gio, well, who's your favorite turtle?
Michelangelo, or Raphael.
Raphael's a good pick too. Raphael had the
Had the
three
size.
prong, the size,
Yeah, the size.
right?
Yes,
Awesome.
the size, man.
Well, in your free comic, so there's a free Ninja Turtles comic that you're getting today, so check it out. Thanks for letting us know, guys. All right, so next, this guy looks like Grand Admiral Thrawn.
He does, actually. Now that you pointed that out, I'm not going to be able to unsee it.
I'm not gonna unsee it. This is called Bloodshot. It looks really cool. I guess I'm totally making an assumption here that he's Japanese, judging
by the fact that he has a large red dot on his chest, which, I would make that assumption as well. We're probably wrong, though. He's probably
wrong.
Russian or something. Who knows?
And then we're totally just making assumptions we shouldn't. But I don't know. This actually looks really cool. I know nothing about this, so I think we're gonna move on.
So, funny enough, I'm actually going to hand you this one because I have not watched the show at all.
So I actually can talk a bit about this too. You're going to get a Doctor Who free comic book day. She has a current run going on right now, the 13th Doctor, and Karyn is reading the run and is really enjoying it. It's supposed to be really good. Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor, and in this comic run has the companions that you know from the season. It's got Ryan, Yasmin, Graham, and of course the TARDIS. So, it was a kind of a short run and for her first season. So these are kind of adventures that you may not have seen.
Yeah, the little filler stories
on television. I can say, looking at this and the other issues too, the art is really, really pops, really vibrant colors.
Very colorful.
Which I guess I wouldn't, be surprised, from Doctor Who. Doctor Who has always been incredibly colorful. But
yeah.
Jodie Whittaker has an awesome 13th Doctor comic run going. If you want to get into it, here's your preview. Check that out.
So, all right. So obviously, since it is May the 4th, May the 4th be with you and all that fun stuff, you cannot have this whole event without a Star Wars comic. So we got Star Wars Adventures.
It even says May the 4th on the back.
And yes, it does.
Show that to people.
Awesome. And look at it on the back. You got some Darth Vader with some May the 4th be with you action.
Who's on the
there.
cover? There's Chewie on the cover.
You got Chewie and Han in there, and that's honestly, like, when I first sat down, when I was looking over, I saw that and I was kind of like, oh man, the art, like, it looks very reminiscent of the Gennady Tartakovsky animated series, which is, let me tell you right now, is not a bad thing whatsoever. That's probably still my favorite animated Star Wars thing ever. So, yeah, we got some Star Wars Adventures here, and do you want me to do this one, or do you want to do this one?
I'll do it because I could speak on this as well. This is a preview into the current Avengers run that's been going on. The team behind this, Jason Aaron, Stefano Cicelli, Eric, I think his name is pronounced Arcanega. I could be wrong. It's one of the best Avengers runs I've read in a long time. I think it's about 18 issues in. It features the Holy Trinity of Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, Ghost Rider, She-Hulk, and I'll put a little minor spoiler in here because it's so cool, and he's on the cover of this one, as you saw. Blade is in this current run of the Avengers. It is an awesome book. They start the whole series, this new Avengers run, like fighting Celestials.
I'm trying to picture Blade of all things in Avengers.
Blade is in this current run of Avengers because they're fighting Dracula and vampires in parts of it. So it's Dracula's a character in Marvel.
Comics are awesome but weird. Just in case you are ever wondering.
That is a fact. That is a fact. But Blade's in it. He's awesome. She-Hulk and Thor are like a thing. It's hilarious. People always say that Thor is like supposed to be serious, and one of the guys I was arguing with on the Cinescape show, their Avengers Endgame spoiler review, was talking about how he didn't like Thor's representation in that movie, and I was like, Thor has never been a very serious character in the comics either.
And you know, it's a slight sidebar, but the fact is that you cannot take Thor seriously because of the fact that, think of the first two Thor movies and think of how dreary and dull the character was.
Yeah.
And I get what they were trying to go for. They were doing the whole like he's a god. I'm an Asgardian. I'm this. And it's just like, that's not interesting to me at all.
Ragnarok is one of the best things.
Ragnarok was amazing, and I very much enjoyed it.
Our final comic.
So last but not least, we have Spider-Man. And I'm not going to lie, I'm very much just in the bottom corner here. You might not be able to see it that well. We have what looks like regular Spider-Man talking to or getting his chest poked by. It looks like the Spider-Man that in Venom. Like not
that's
quite.
Miles Morales.
Oh, that is Miles. Oh,
that's Miles. Yeah, that is the Miles Spider-Man.
So you can see how much I've kept up with Spider-Man comics in recent times.
But that's not even the cool part.
Yes, we have what looks like now it says the Venom Epic of 2019. So I'm going to assume this is Venom, even though to me it looks very much like Carnage. But I know I'm probably wrong.
No, I don't know either. But that looks like it's Carnage, and Venom's just not on the cover.
Yeah. So. As I said, I haven't kept up with Spider-Man. The art looks pretty solid in here. I'm very much a fan of hyper detail. Hey, right,
you see, there's Miles and Peter.
You got Miles and Peter's right there. So, Into the Spider-Verse, I'm sure definitely helped push the Miles character.
Such an awesome movie,
in comicdom.
Such an awesome movie.
So yeah, I mean, whole nice big stack here. You're gonna get these.
It's a great variety of books this year for Free Comic Book Day. It always is, but there's I'm not gonna lie.
You got variety.
Well, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I don't always read every single one of these every year, but each one of them is so cool and unique in their own way. I'm probably gonna spend an afternoon just reading all these.
Nice.
So if you're not here yet, Facebook Live, come out to Wade's Comic Madness in Levittown off New Falls Road. It is Free Comic Book Day. You just walk in, you get in the long line, and you get a free bag of comics, and they have kids' bags as well. And a lot of items today are buy one, get one free.
Yes,
can't beat that.
Nice stuff.
We have to move on. When we come back, Facebook, you will not hear this segment. This will be on Tuesday when the show comes out on Apple, Spotify, Google, whatever you listen to your podcasts on. Myself, the Mother of Dragons, Karyn Brown, sat down with my very good friend, Brian Barrish, and we did a mid-season review of the final season of Game of Thrones, what happened during the Battle of Winterfell, and what we expect to happen in these final 3 episodes. And after you're listening to this, final 2 episodes. That is coming up next. Stick around. All right, welcome back to Everything is Permitted, and I am super excited to announce someone that I used to do a podcast with. We're old mates, we're pals. My very good friend, Brian Barrish, joining us on the show. Welcome to my show, man. We tried to do this earlier, and it didn't end up happening, but you're here now.
And that's all that matters, isn't it? Listen, to all you listening, and I'm sure you're friends of one of us, you know that we did a soccer show together. So just to keep it somewhat on brand, Danny Cruz still sucks. So
Well done, well done.
Thank you.
We also couldn't do a Game of Thrones segment without the mother of dragons herself, Karyn Brown.
Hey, guys.
It's always good to have you. The last time we talked, we were ranting and raving about Avengers Endgame.
Yes.
And now we're going to rant and rave about Game of Thrones.
I do like ranting and raving.
Ranting and raving is fun. I think Brian loves ranting and raving as well.
That's where I'm a Viking.
All right, so let's get down to it. This is the final season of Game of Thrones. We have officially, by the time you're listening to this, we're actually going to be 4 episodes in, but we're recording this at the midway point of the season. 3 episodes in, the long night, aka the Battle of Winterfell, has happened. The spoiler alert, the North and Daenerys' army won the day. But we're going to take this back to the very beginning of the season. We're going to kind of talk about all 3 episodes. But just to start, let's just do a general rundown. Brian, you're our guest, and I'm so happy to have you on. We're going to start with you. What are your first initial thoughts on this, first half of the final season? Is it about what you've expected? Is it a letdown? Where are you at?
Well, I think so far it's kind of gone according to plan. There are 3 major storylines here. The first of which is obviously the White Walkers, the dead coming to obliterate the living. The second is the dynamic between Jon and Dany, and really the quote-unquote good guys, so to speak, or at least that's how we've been following them. And then Cersei, who really I think is the only genuinely evil character other than the Night King and the White Walkers, but that goes without saying. Really, it has kind of gone, everything just kind of convalescing together, and now we're essentially down to Dany and Jon and Cersei. But, so far so good. I wouldn't say that I've been let down at all. I think that even though the third episode, and we'll get into this in a minute, even though the third episode really is, I'm not going to say it was a letdown. I think that it was more of it kind of missed a mark in some places. I think overall I've been kind of happy with the season so far.
Karyn, how about you?
I think I mostly agree with that. The first 2 episodes of the season were a lot of exposition and kind of character moments and build up to the White Walker Battle of Winterfell, and the long night, the Battle of Winterfell. I didn't love it. I got what they were going for, and ultimately, it did sort of end as I thought it would be, but I don't know. For me, it was so convoluted and confusing that it lost some of the, impact that I think it might have had otherwise. But I think it's been interesting. I think it's given a lot of really good character moments that I've been really happy with, but also some things that I don't love. So,
Yeah, like Karyn said, I'm of the opinion the first 2 episodes, I'm generally a pretty big fan of exposition and build up. Again, I'm not a huge fan of Long Night. I'm gonna kind of be the boo-hooer here, the naysayer, and say that so far I have been relatively disappointed with this final season of Game of Thrones. And we'll get into why in a little bit. Let's talk about the very first 2 episodes. Karyn, you were talking about the exposition. Was it too much build up? Was it too much exposition?
I think, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, they had a lot of chess pieces to get into place. You had to get Daenerys into Winterfell. You had to have all of the introductions and reunions happening, and there were some really lovely moments that when you've got Arya and Jon reconnecting, and you've got Tyrion seeing Sansa again, and just all these different characters kind of coming together finally, because it's really been how long, 7 years, 8 years that since the Starks have all been together, really. And this whole buildup of Daenerys finally making it into Westeros.
And not a very warm welcome.
No, but I don't. That doesn't surprise me. I think her being welcomed with open arms would have been out of character for the North.
Definitely,
very much so.
Brian, do you want to touch on kind of that first episode where Dany finally with Jon makes it into Winterfell?
Well, I think you have to just consider the fact that a lot has happened, as Karyn said, since everybody left. It was almost like you dropped a glass bottle and everybody just sort of scattered all over the world, and now all of a sudden the pieces are coming back together again. The other thing is that you do have to also consider there's a lot of regional parochialism here.
Tribalism.
Very tribalism. Yeah, everybody is very, the North is very set in their ways. And you even saw it in the second episode when Grey Worm and Missandei are talking. And they're like, we don't like it here. We want to go back to the South and live out the rest of our days. So there is the culture shock, if you will. And of course, now everybody's coming together to go up against this force up north, and then even the Lannisters and regionally speaking, they have their own cultural shock. I think they did have to set things up in a sense, because we also have been following these characters, as Karyn said, for 7-8 years, and we've seen these characters change and morph. And I think the one character really that embodies that is Jaime Lannister. When you watch the first season, you think, man, this guy is a schmuck, and I want just terrible things to happen for him. And now you see him and the way he is with Brienne and the way that he is standing up with her, standing behind her. It's, seeing these characters now come to this point. There was a lot of gravitas in that second episode, the feeling that this may very well be our last night. And we'll get into that when we talk about the battle scene. But a friend of mine pointed out that one group of 6 people, where you had Davos and Brienne and Jaime and Tyrion and Pod and Tormund, and you're thinking to yourself, at least 4 or 5 of these people aren't going to make it, and they all survived.
Yeah,
so
that got me.
That got me, and that's something I was super frustrated about the episode, the big battle in the long night. I'll get to that in a second, but I do want to touch on your point real quick that you made about Jaime, which I think is fantastic. This is someone who any other season, if they showed up in Winterfell, would probably be killed on the spot. But then you have a situation where you have Tyrion, which isn't a shock, standing up for him. Lady Brienne, still not a shock. But, the fact that these people say he has changed, he is a new man, he will fight for us. And then that beautiful scene in episode 2, Karyn, where they are around that fire and they knight Brienne. And you think that's going to be it for Brienne.
Oh, it was such a, I don't know, it was such like a letdown almost, that they have this whole like arc and these moments of these characters where it's like, oh man, like they're goners. You can tell in these series when they, these characters kind of have an end to their arc, and you're like, oh, finally Brienne becomes a knight, and that means she's probably gonna die. And they kind of like teased us, and maybe it's just because we've come to expect it from this series, that they're so easy to hand out death certificates, that you expect that, but it didn't happen. And somehow, against odds that are extremely extremely low, somehow against all odds, these characters all managed to survive. It's a very interesting choice that they made, and I get that they have stories to tell with these people, but the build up, I think, and the way that the battle went, you kind of really almost get let down by the fact that they didn't.
And let's get into that. Let's get into the final battle, the Battle of Winterfell. This episode called The Long Night. It's been mired in in a bit of controversy. It's probably my least favorite episode of Game of Thrones. Brian, I'll let you start, because I think you kind of been echoing what we're saying, that surprisingly these characters all survived.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I'm sitting here listening to Karyn talk about, how the show is so predictable sometimes, and yet we're expecting all these people to die and nobody dies. So here's what I'll say. I've had some time to go back and watch parts of it. I haven't done a second complete rewatch of it, but I see the episode a little bit more favorably, I think, than when I first watched it. It still isn't my favorite, and I wouldn't even say it's in my top 5. But let's look at the good parts about it. There are certain parts of the episode that I think are really well done, and it starts at the beginning. And, of course, the Dothraki, you have this amazingly heartening build-up scene. You've been waiting an entire week, even longer, for this. And the analogy I gave was, think about your team being in the Super Bowl. I know we're going to do a sports reference here, but just stick with me. Think of your team being in the Super Bowl, and you've had this build-up, this 2-week build-up, and now you're ready. The big game is here. There is this amazingly positive, heartening build-up scene where, Melisandre lights all the swords on fire with her magic, and here are the Dothraki, and you're thinking to yourself, here are these big strong warriors, surely they're going to take it to this band of outlaws, surely they're going to beat the bad guy. And it's like watching your team in the Super Bowl take the opening kickoff, run it all the way down to the 1-yard line, fumble the ball, the other team picks it up, returns it the other way for a touchdown, and kills everybody on the team on the way down. Yeah. It was, and from that point, you knew that you were going to be, that this wasn't going to be even like some good and some bad going back and forth. You knew this was going to be very difficult to watch. The next thing you know, here is this horde of dead people coming at this army that's been assembled and being completely overmatched. And there were bits of respite for it. The scene down in the crypts. There were certain things that I think went according to, I think we're a little too on brand, a little bit too on point. Everybody talking in episode 2 how the crypts are the safest place in Winterfell.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, you want everybody to be in a room full of dead people against a guy who can raise dead people. Am I missing something? But I think the opening scene was very well done. I think there were certain aspects of it. We'll talk about the darkness in a minute. I love that one scene during the dragon fight where they go up above the clouds and they're in this beautiful, clear, moonlit sky, and it's just a moment for everybody to breathe before we get plunged into this nonsense. The one other thing that was brought up, I think, as a negative was the frantic, almost too intense nature of the battle. And what I will say is I do appreciate the fact that the people the writers and whoever came up with this, they wanted to make the viewer feel like that you were actually in the battle, because they couldn't see what was going on. They were confused. They were blitz. That's all in good, but I still am watching a story here, and I still would like to know what's going on. And one final point, I've watched the very end with Arya and that final scene where she stabs the Night King. And when I first watched it, Julian, I complained to you on Facebook, as I said that the way that this battle wrapped up, and it was almost the complete despair. Like, there was absolutely no way I could see this ending up good. Everybody's going to die. It's going to be terrible. What's the end game here? It's almost like Battle of the Bastards. It's the same way. You think John's a goner, and all of a sudden, here come the Knights of the Vale. Yeah. But watching that scene, and there's a really good, I don't put a whole lot of stock in reaction videos. There's a really good series from a bar in Chicago called the Burlington Bar, and they've been doing it since, I want to say, season 3 or season 4. They watch the watch party. And there is this sound that when Arya comes out of nowhere, it goes from complete silence to this ear-piercing scream, which is somewhere between shock, excitement, and dread, because it's, oh my God, it's Arya. oh my God, we just saw somebody in Theon just run into death just now, and the same thing's going to happen to Arya, and then it's like, oh crap, what's going to happen? And then it's done, and then into complete. It was like Christmas all of a sudden. So having watched that scene back a couple of times, I feel better about the way that it ended than when I first saw it.
I don't mind the actual ending itself too much. What bothered me the most about it was the fact that it was given away so horribly midway through the episode with the Red Lady. Like it was so blatantly obvious that it was going to be Arya at the end. I also liked your point about the crypts at the end. I also thought it was way too it was uneventful. Like this should be a very powerful moment with the dead Starks, waking up and chasing after the people in the crypts. I thought it was a very poorly done scene, very let down.
And of course, conveniently, no one important actually dies.
No one important actually dead. I don't want to talk too much because I know a lot of people already know my thoughts on the episode. Karyn, Brian brought up a lot of good points. I want to know what your thoughts on this episode were.
I agree with you on definitely a good chunk of that. The whole feeling of the episode with, just how it was dark and confusing and and foggy, and everything moved so quickly, and there were parts where I was like, wait, did that person? No, they would have had like an actual scene if that person died, right? And there was a lot of that where I was like, wait, is Brienne okay? But it was like there were so many close calls that at a point where I was like, okay, well, we're actually gonna see somebody die if they really die. Like it's not just gonna they're not just gonna die and then be found later. But yeah, it felt very like, even though it felt really hopeless, it was like, wait, but these people are still alive. And there were things that I loved about this episode. I loved Arya getting to be a badass and like confuse the hell out of people in the middle of the battle. I loved the Hound and Barrick going after Arya and like helping her when she gets trapped in the castle with
the library. The library. So that's a very well done scene.
That was a great scene. I loved that. It was a really nice respite from this like crazy chaotic battle, and then you've got Arya silent in the library trying to like ninja around all of the dead.
That was a very cool scene.
That was a great scene. And I loved that you kind of got this redemption for the Hound where he gets to, to help save her, and, they kind of are able to work together, which, they've not really done and been in the same room since just before. I loved the little moment with Sansa and Tyrion, although I wish that there was more to it after, because they sort of have this moment where it's like, okay, it looks like they're just gonna like go into, well, and I heard
Apparently
I heard that there was a cut scene that they did actually have a little like skirmish with some of the dead for the two of them, and that they did end up cutting that, which I think was a little unfortunate, because I think that would have given that scene a little bit more continuity, because it's like they're hiding behind the tombstone or whatever it is, and they have this little moment, and then like that's it. And I wish that there had been a little bit more with that instead of them just sort of emerging. The darkness definitely was not not something I loved. There were a lot of times where I was like, what are you people doing with their military strategy? And it's like, you send in all these Dothraki to basically be slaughtered.
Cannon fodder.
Yeah, they're cannon fodder. What are you doing with your trebuchets? Like, why are you, throwing flaming balls at your Dothraki? Like, what was that? Why wouldn't you send those in ahead of time and then send the Dothraki? I don't even know. The dragons were not used exactly as well as they could have. But at the same time, you sort of, I don't know, I've read a lot about the strategy and people complaining about the strategy, but also, there's this sort of like, well, their whole end game is to try to get the Night King to come into the castle so that somebody can kill him. Because obviously, you don't kill the Night King, like this war is never going to end. He's just going to keep going. And even if you kill all the dead, he's just going to make more dead. So
And he did.
And he did. Well, and absolutely he did. He's just going to keep raising dead and raising dead and raising dead and plowing through people because he's single-minded, and that's what he's doing. So you can kind of see that they've had to sacrifice people, and that they're trying to, sort of distract and leave Bran open without actually leaving him open. There were things that I didn't notice, or I didn't really understand were going on, that I've sort of figured out later, like Jon distracting the dragon so that Arya could get into the Godswood, so that she could kill the Night King. Because I was like, what the hell is Jon doing with the dragon?
Yeah, I didn't figure that out.
I really didn't understand what that was, and then realized the dragon was blocking people from getting into the Godswood, and so he kind of opened the way, and that's why he kept going out and trying. I was like, what are you doing? There were things that I liked, but it didn't feel like what it was building up to in the previous episodes.
It didn't feel like what it was building up to, and I just feel like for the entire show's run, there were so many better battles throughout the seasons than this one. No matter what, it's a controversial episode. I think the majority of people do enjoy it. There's the whole drama with the cinematographer, whether you want to believe he's right and we're wrong, or we're right and he's wrong. It doesn't really matter. Brian, I want to get your final thoughts on this first half, and then what you expect to see from the final 3 episodes of Game of Thrones.
Well, my trust issues are even worse than they were before, so there's that. But I think, like I said, I think we're now looking at Dany and Jon and Cersei, and the thing is on the outside it's Cersei versus Dany and Jon, but really all 3 of them, in their minds at the very least, have a claim to the Iron Throne. And just as much of that, it's what role are the quote-unquote bit players going to play in all of this? What's Arya's role? What's Sansa's role going to be? I, for one, am more interested, I think, in these side stories. And the thing is about Game of Thrones. Anybody who likes Game of Thrones, I think, will tell you that what makes this isn't just that this is one major storyline or 2 major storylines. It's all of these characters, and in many cases, we've been by their side the entire time. And in many cases, they've gone off and done their own thing. What the heck's going to happen with Yara? Mm-hmm. So I think whatever happens, I don't know. I feel like Cersei's going down. Cersei is like the only evil thing left at this point. I think Cersei is like the actual big bad. You've got Jon, who is... he's
kind of the
good.
White
Everything,
Knight, yeah,
everything's good. And then you have Dany in the middle, and Dany she's been perceived the entire show as wanting to be good. You see how she treated the Unsullied, how she freed the slaves of Meereen. But she still wants to be the queen. She still thinks she's the queen. And what lengths is she going to go to? And we saw that with the death of the Tarleys.
Yeah.
There are a lot of questions in terms of that. So it's good, bad, and what's going to happen in the middle with Daenerys. Yeah.
Karyn, I know that you have a couple of quick thoughts on what could possibly happen with Dany, and as well as Jaime and Cersei.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Dany plays out once she does get within reach of the Iron Throne. There's theories: is she going to, does she have a touch of the madness like her father did, and is she going to go by way of other Targaryens? Who knows? There's theories that Jon might have to kill her. Which would be pretty gut wrenching, but could be par for the course for such a show as this. I'm hoping to see a Lannister reunion, and could be that Kingslayer becomes Queenslayer. I would love to see that. I think that would be a really awesome gut wrenching kind of moment. I think there's going to be a bit of a standoff between Dany and Sansa once now that the battle is over and Sansa is, I don't think, going to bend the knee quite as easily as her brother did. And what's going to happen now?
He bent a lot more than the knee.
But what's going to happen now that Dany knows that he has a claim to the throne? And how is he going to convince her that he doesn't want it? Or maybe he does? There's a lot of questions.
Let's end it with that. And Karyn, I'll let you answer first. Very quick, one word answer. Who winds up on the throne?
John.
Brian.
John.
I'm going to say Daenerys. I could be dead wrong. I'm going to say Daenerys. We will find out in, by the time you listen to this, 2 weeks. For us, it's 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks right now. Brian, I want to thank you so much for finally making it on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. I look forward to the next time that you find something that I actually have an interest in.
I'm glad this was it. Karyn, thank you, obviously, for joining us again. When we come back, Matt and I are going to do more Free Comic Book Day coverage and talk about our favorite non-Marvel / DC comics. That's coming up next. All right, welcome back to the show. And Matt, you've had this on our list of topics for quite a while.
Yes, I did.
This seemed to be the perfect day to do it because it's Free Comic Book Day. We're going to talk about some of our favorite comics that are not Marvel or DC. Maybe stuff from Image, from Top Cow, Dark Horse. There's a bunch of other comic companies out there that are not Marvel and DC that have come out with some pretty awesome content. This is your baby, so I'm going to let you go first.
So basically, I've said in the past that I'm not a huge comic book guy. I don't have the space for it in my house because, obviously I collect video games and movies, so I kind of had to cut my nerddom off somewhere. Yeah. But however, for a few years, in the early aughts, I guess as people call it now, post 2010, I was huge into the website Kickstarter, where it's a crowdfunding site. Yep. It was really big for a while. I don't know if people use it as much as they once did, but
Kickstarter and GoFundMe,
Indiegogo, they were both really they were both really big for a time, and I know they still exist and all that. So basically, for about a 2 or 3 year period, I was backing stuff left and right.
That's awesome.
And I backed a lot of independent artists that were publishing their stories that they always wanted to publish, that for whatever reason they just were never going to be able to get around to publishing. And some of my favorite stuff that I've read in graphic novels, comic books, came from those Kickstarter because the artists genuinely cared about their projects and they poured their heart and soul into them. I mean, now, I'm very picky about what I like in terms of comic and graphic novels. I like very detailed art. It takes a lot to kind of move me away from that. And maybe it kind of makes me a bit of a snob. And I wish I'd totally whiffed and would have brought them just so you could see them. But one of my favorite projects, and I told the guy when I backed it, the first time when I got the book, I told him I would back every single book he made after that for this project, was called Curate Ipsum. It's a Latin phrase, and it means, the way the graphic novel explains it, it means physician heal thyself. Ooh. And basically what it is it takes place around this character whose name is Charlie. And Charlie he basically works as like a school, not a teacher, but just an administrator. Yeah. He's almost like a therapist for kids. Okay. And he suffers from depression. He suffers from all these issues. He has his dog Pavlov, and I know. And so basically, he comes into work one day, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we need to cut the budget, so we have to cut this department." Yeah. And he just goes, "I am that department," and they kind of go, "Yeah, that's kind of yeah," and they're like, "Bye." So he basically, that finally breaks him, and he decides he's going to take his own life. And so he basically puts a gun in his mouth, and you see in the panel, he shoots himself, you just see the hammer fall and the gun going off, and it happens multiple times. And in the last panel, somebody's hand grabs the gun before it goes off, and it's himself. And he goes, look, I know where you're coming from. I've been there. He goes, there's a better way.
Yeah.
And basically he finds out that alternate dimensions of himself are traveling across dimensions and preventing him from killing himself.
Awesome.
And basically there's a him that's a female. There's a him that has cancer. There's a him that has... And basically, and the crux of the whole story is there's a him that wants to eliminate all the other hymns. And they call him kind of the Dark Everett as basically, and they have fun with the art, with storylines, because like one of the questions is like, can we kill Hitler? And he's like, yeah, we can kill Hitler. Let's go kill Hitler. And so they appear back in time and just shoot.
Thanos there, why don't we just go and Thanos?
Yeah, no, they shoot Hitler for in one of the story times. They just go back and kill Hitler.
I know we're not talking about Marvel and DC, but it does, as you're talking, remind me of what they've been doing recently with Spider-Geddon and Into the Spider-Verse. Like all these different versions of Spider-Man, female Spider-Man, female Dr. Octopuses, like Octopi. I don't know, but like the multiverse theory that there could be multiple versions of yourselves that are not necessarily man, not necessarily woman. I find that really cool.
Yeah, and it's a very cool concept. It's been forever since I've read, so I can't even like give you all the beats of the story. But basically, there were 4 or 5 editions of Curate Ipsum, and basically because I was one of the Kickstarter backers, I literally have them hardbound.
Oh,
and
cool.
They are individually numbered and signed with little messages. So I literally have 25 of 50, and they match the number for each of the books that I have. So basically, there are only 50 copies of this hardbound edition of each of the volumes of Curate Ipsum, but I know that they have it online, and I know
did it become successful?
It might have its niche, but I think that they also make another series which I haven't read. I can't remember what it's called, and I feel bad, but I know the artist's name is Dexter Wee. He lives in the Philippines, and the guy I think who writes it lives in the U.S. He's the one who created the Kickstarter, and I apologize if he sees this because I am friends with him on Facebook, but I literally can't think of his name right now, and it's going to drive me insane until I remember it. But yeah, Curate Ipsum, it's a very interesting concept, very highbrow, very makes you wonder and think about the various possibilities of the world and of your own self in that world. So now that I went on and gushed for a bit about one,
I'm super interested. It sounds really cool.
I can loan it to you.
Yeah, I would love that. I don't want to ruin your awesomely super special bound books. Like I have things like that I'm very touchy about, so I could understand. I'll have to check it out though because. Yeah. And it sounds like you said the art is very detailed.
The art is very good art, very detailed art, and the characters are very interesting. Like even the villain, the Dark Everett, as I said, they call him is interesting because of the fact that his face is all deformed and everything, and his whole motivation, as he says, he goes I'm going to be the last one. He goes, when you're all dead, he goes, I will shoot myself. And he goes, and then all the Charlies will be done. He goes, we're all gonna die.
That sounds awesome. I'm gonna definitely have to check that out. For me, it's I'm gonna give a shout out to my friend Diana Lee out in San Diego. Karyn and I were, I think it's right before we moved here or right after we moved here. We knew Wade's was here, and we were getting back into comics again. I'd stopped reading for a while. But there were, I wanted to start reading X-Men again, and I wanted to start reading, picking up on some Marvel and DC books. Yeah. And my friend Karyn's friend first, to be fair, has known her longer, recommended Saga. Which
I've heard of Saga.
Is from Image, and they just announced it's going to be ending. Is just the coolest, mind-bending, not mind-bending in the sense that it's there's all sorts of twists and turns, but just because of the art and the different characters. But I completely fudged and didn't go back and do my research. But
I might upload some photos of Curate
and
we'll do that stuff like that when I get back home.
Well.
I'll upload that.
But the general gist is there are on Earth and kind of, if you want to talk about the Berlin Wall situation, 2 warring factions that had been at war and are at war forever and ever. They're 2 different races, and one of them becomes. I should preface by saying that all of Saga is told by these two characters, is narrated by these two characters who are members of each faction.
Yeah.
Who had basically a forbidden child. It's told from her point of view.
From the child's point
From
of
the
view?
child's point of view.
Oh, nice.
And it's such a cool book because it's like Romeo and Juliet.
That was my thought when I saw it.
Yeah,
because I saw it a while back.
It's a forbidden love. They basically end up having the militaries of both factions chasing after them, bounty hunters. There's a bounty hunter in the book that has a really cool cat it's a talking cat that knows when you're lying, and like if you tell a lie, it'll say like lies, and it's just such a cool series. There's like one of the other bounty hunters. Yeah, he knows what I'm talking about. One of the other bounty hunters is like like half humanoid, half arachnid with like big eyes, and just like it's such a cool book, and it spans all over these different planets, and it takes place over years and years, and the daughter grows up. They're on the run. They have to take different careers. They have to hide at points. It's unlike anything I've ever read before. And calling it saga is so fitting because, like I said, it takes place over so many years. Like it truly is a saga, and you're seeing their daughter, who is a love child of this, basically for something that is absolutely forbidden, grow up and narrate their parents' story. I highly recommend Saga. I think we have like 3 volumes that we've yet to read at home.
I was interested in Saga, and one of these days I probably will like pick up the first volume and just read it.
Pick up today, and if they have it, like buy one get one free.
Yeah. Another shout out to and going back to Kickstarter, another graphic novel that I backed is called, and I've actually now backed it twice, is called The Runners, if I remember correctly. I might be flubbing the title, and I apologize if I am. But basically, it's the artist, I believe his name is Sean Wang, and essentially think Firefly, but it's with aliens and such like that.
Cool.
But basically, he created it a few years ago for Kickstarter, and he did two releases. He did his volume 1 and his volume 2, and he's now picking it up and he says he's going to do a volume 3 and all that. Basically, it has kind of the standard plot of like, hey, they get this case or this thing that has a person inside of it. However, as I said, it's not humans, they're all aliens. Like the person inside the case is a human, and they're kind of like, all right, what are we going to do with a human? Like, what's up with her? Love the art. The characters are well written. It's been forever since I've read it, so I can't even name the characters. But it's a fun romp, and probably one of my favorite comic moments actually comes from The Runners because they're in the middle of a firefight, and one of the aliens has like a head with eyes that goes everywhere, so he can literally see everywhere.
Freaky.
But he's like their sniper because he can see so well. And they're sitting there, and they're like and they're like in this firefight, and he's like, one of the characters says to this guy, he goes like, what are you having fun now? And the guy has the serious look, and all of a sudden he just grins at him. He just goes, God, you're insane. Oh, and so, and actually the guy, the artist just basically, he did another Kickstarter, and I should be getting them in June. He colorized, because only the second volume was colorized. The first one was just in standard black and white. And he said, like, I want to go back and colorize the first volume as well as put out hardbound editions. So I have 2 hardbound editions that are coming to my house in June, because there was a problem with the printer. Otherwise, I would have gotten them this month. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I like yours are like so obscure. I love it. I love that.
I love obscure. I love going obscure.
I'm just gonna briefly. I'm gonna mention one more very quickly because we're running out of time.
Yep.
But that's something that I read because one of my middle school teachers. I don't remember who he drew and wrote for back in the 90s. I can't even remember his name. It was so long ago. But he was a comic artist, and a lot of our art class was drawing comic stuff.
Yeah.
Or him just giving us comics to read during the class.
Nice.
And he got me in, and it was definitely too much for me at that age, so I didn't appreciate it as much. But the Sandman, Neil Gaiman's Sandman.
Yes, a classic. I haven't read it, but I know all about it.
I read them. I don't remember anything about them, but I remember I just was so enthralled because I remember a couple of years ago, Karyn said, "Hey, like, I'm thinking about getting Sandman." She's like, "Well, let me get them for you for like Christmas or something."
Yeah.
You know, and if you like the first one, we'll get more. And I believe she read through the first one and enjoyed it. It's really dark and really that is like something that's like very like twisted and like mind warping. And I want to give a shout out to that because Neil Gaiman's amazing.
Neil Gaiman is probably one of the most creative forces in like pop culture over the last like 2 decades or 2 decades plus, I'd say.
Yep. We're out of time.
Yep.
But I gotta say, like, I love your support of art and like these graphic novels. Like, that's so cool. I gotta find something that I could do to.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
support that
like,
kind of thing.
honestly, I could probably do an entire episode, and I actually have a stack of stuff I've backed on Kickstarter sitting at my house that. Literally, I could do an entire episode and just say like this and this and this and this.
And like I said, I'll have to check it out. And that's the final point I want to make here before we go. Please, back a project on Kickstarter. Support your local comic shop. These comics aren't free to the vendors. They have to pay for them to get them here. Support your local comic shops. They're having great sales today. Come here to Wade's. Buy comic books. Don't torrent them. To support the artists, support the writers. It's really important. Matt, next week is our 20th episode.
Yes. We'll have to think of something for that.
I know. We'll have to do something maybe a little special. I'm really excited. This has been a blast. Free Comic Book Day is always fun. I'm really glad that we did it this way and kind of seeing people so excited about the stuff that's on auction, the art, the comics.
Yeah.
I've seen a bunch of kids in costume. There's a Spider-Man behind us. There was a Black Panther earlier. It's always a super fun day. So we'll have to do this again next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Facebook, thank you for listening. We'll have the whole show on Tuesday. For Matt, I'm Julian. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Buy a plane to the rocket, buy a taxi to the airport.